Welcome to Aim in Practice. I'm your host, Jess Reynolds, and in this podcast, we explore the world of integrative and complementary medicine and its application in real-world clinical practice. Each episode, we dive deep into conversation with practitioners, authors, thought leaders, and innovators who are shaping the future of holistic healthcare. Today, I am chatting with Ania Halama. Now, Ania is a world traveler who has helped thousands of heart-centered individuals align with their ideal clients to attract wealth, health, love, mental health, and spiritual wealth. So in today's episode, Ania shares her journey from corporate America to becoming a spiritual mentor, the creation of her holistic wellness academy called Expansion Alchemy, and the profound impact of plant medicines in her life. So in today's episode, you'll learn about the importance of integrating spirituality, personal development, and health in both personal and professional settings, the power of authenticity in business and personal growth, the connection between love and money in manifestation practices, practical tips for incorporating spirituality into daily life and professional settings, and a lot more. So with that, let's dive into our conversation with Ania and explore these fascinating topics together. Before we get into today's episode, I'd like to introduce our sponsor, Jane, the clinic management software and EMR. Now, the team at Jane understands that clocking out from the clinic, well, it doesn't always mean you're clocking out for the day. Instead, it's often the start of charting long into the evening. So with time-saving charting features like custom smart narratives, chart duplication, and dictation, Jane helps you finish charting your patient's notes during work hours, not after hours. And to save you even more time, you have access to Jane's chart template library that's fully stocked with pre-made templates that have been generously shared by practitioners in the community. You can even customize them further with charting tools like side-by-side photos, checkboxes, and range scales. To see how Jane can help you free up your evenings from admin tasks, click the link in the show notes and book a personalized demo. But if you're ready to get started, you can use the code AIM1MO at the time of sign-up for 1 month grace period applied to your new Jane account. Welcome, Ania. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. As I was preparing for this conversation, I had the opportunity to look through your social media and your website and everything that you do. And I must say, I am super stoked to chat with you. I feel as though we've got a lot of similarities and overlaps. And in addition to that, there are many areas in which you are very active in that I would love to jump into. So thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So usually what I do is I always start by getting the backstory, like what got you into this world? And I am interested in that, and I would love to go down that. But as I was going through your website, I found myself really curious about one thing in particular. So maybe we'll start things a little bit differently and we could jump into your academy, which I am so interested in. So you've got the Expansion Academy. And as I was reading and going through and watching testimonials, it is absolutely fantastic. So why don't we start off with what exactly is this Expansion Academy?
Yeah, thank you so much for curiosity in that. It's a brand new baby of mine, and that one in itself has a beautiful backstory, and I'd love to share all of that as well. So what Expansion Alchemy is a holistic wellness academy, essentially, in the realms of personal development, health, relationships, spirituality, and financial wealth, because I believe you have to have all of them to have a balanced well-being overall. And you do have to start with the mindset, the spirituality, the health, all of that first, and then you get to the finances. Once all of that is aligned within your body, then your finances will start growing. So that's why I say it in that particular order as well. And right now we're reaching out. We just launched this past couple of days, last weekend, actually, we had a launch into corporations. So I want to be a mental wellness benefit for employees and getting the holistic stuff into corporations. I worked in corporate America for 10 years and I had a mental breakdown after those 10 years. For an entire decade, I was sick, anxiety, depression, insomnia. I was going blind. I was so sick. If I had the tools in corporate America that I have now, I'd still probably be in corporate America. That's not my role anymore. But I know that those tools are very needed in that space. Those are the people that need it the most. So we just launched last weekend into corporations, and I'm super excited for that. But Expansion Alchemy, I'd love to share a little bit of the backstory of Expansion Alchemy and how because I think it really resonates with your audience. So I wrote my second book. I was on book tour. Book tour was Vegas, LA, New York, Costa Rica. Like I felt like I was on top of the world. I had 5 Times Square billboards with like 80-foot Ania face. Like literally felt like I was on top
Yeah.
of the world during this book tour. And I had a thriving business right beforehand. I ended up closing all of my coaching contracts right before book tour because I was on book tour for an entire month. I was like, I don't know what my time is going to be. Like, I'm in different time zones. I'm networking. Like, maybe I want to be going to a party at 10 o'clock to network. Like, I don't want to deal with this. So I closed everything out, went to book tour, and I came back from book tour and I got hacked. I lost everything. I lost my entire business. I lost my website. I lost 300 pieces of video content I've ever created. I lost 30,000 email subscribers, literally lost everything.
Oh no. That is so brutal.
It was horrible. It was
Yeah.
horrible. So that followed with a couple of months trying to retrieve everything back, trying to like get my email subscribers back. And then now, okay, I got some email subscribers. Let's say I got 5 or 6,000 back out of the 30,000. Now all my emails are going to spam because like my website authority is ruined. So it was just like one thing after another trying to retrieve everything back, followed by like 2 or 3 months of having a mental breakdown all over again, like questioning myself, questioning my worth. Like, am I supposed to be doing this? Like, is this my path going into imposter syndrome? Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Like, what is my higher calling? Should I even be coaching anymore? And I was doing spiritual business coaching at the moment. I do all spiritual coaching now, and plant medicine work. Like I needed that pivot apparently. And one day I just completely surrendered. I did what I know how to do best, and that's meditation. So I sat in a 4-hour meditation, and in that meditation, everything came to me: the name, the logo, the branding, the colors, what partners I want on it, what payment structure, who we're eventually going to go after, like the different pillars, as I call it. Literally everything was given to me in that 4-hour meditation. And I spent the next year and a half building Expansion Alchemy, and we've launched it to the public about 6 months ago, but to corporation we just had the launch this past weekend. So it's a brand new baby of mine, and I'm super excited for it.
That's quite the story getting into it. I mean, being from the sounds of it, your career, your trajectory was very much in the self-development, self-help sort of world, right? And then there's a lot of course, work that goes into the individual in order to maintain authenticity in there. But then to have this one thing that you said is like, should I even be doing this? If I imagine myself in your shoes and all of a sudden everything is gone, then that thought would definitely come into my mind too. Like, universe, what are you trying to tell me here? Like, you trying to tell me back off, shift directions? Wow, that must have been like massively impactful.
Thank God, man, my mental health was
Yeah.
horrendous. Questioning my own worth. Like, am I good enough to be coaching? Maybe
Yeah.
that's why. Maybe I'm just not a good coach. Maybe that's why this whole thing happened. Like, I don't know what is the bigger calling out of this. And I
Yeah.
just needed that pivot. And then Expansion Alchemy came to me
Yeah.
everything. And I'm so blessed for that.
That is amazing, and it sounds like you had a proper download experience, right? Everything just
Oh yeah.
comes to you with perfect clarity. And I'm curious about the pillars, right? I appreciate this idea of distinct steps and individual processes. What I found most interesting and most agreeable with the pillars and the order in which you laid them out was beginning with spirituality, developing spirituality. I personally found that oftentimes that particular pillar is either left out completely or tacked on to the end as like, oh yeah, you should probably do something about your spiritual life as well. Even in this mind body medicine, we call it mind body medicine, even though the technical definition is mind body soul. So I'm wondering, can we dig into what was the impetus, the idea behind starting with this foundation of spirituality?
Yeah, I truly believe that we need to really start looking internally. Like when I turned my brain off, looked internally, turned to my spirituality, turned to that meditation, that's when Expansion Alchemy came to me. Yes, mind, body, spirit, we say usually, but your spirit should be nourished first. Like your spirit comes before your body comes, actually, before your brain develops, before all of that, your spirit comes. And we need to keep fostering that and keep developing that spirit with a daily practice, a daily connection, whether it's to God, to Buddha, whether it's meditation, prayer, whatever. We need to keep fostering that spirit. And then spirit is going to keep talking to us, reflecting back to us, because everything's a mirror as well. Keep reflecting back to us all these beautiful ideas and health and all the other beautiful things that come with it.
Can we, if it's okay with you, can we dig into sort of what happened for you spiritually when this moment came, when Expansion Alchemy came to you? What was going on in your spiritual, I guess, experience at that point in time? What was that like?
Oh man. So the first thing that I heard was the actual name, Expansion Alchemy. I heard expansion first and I was like, okay, I like that. Okay, what? Tell me more. And I talk to spirit whenever I get downloads or if I'm in meditation, I ask questions. Okay, like, is this, am I supposed to be expanding? Am I supposed to help people expand? Like I heard just expansion. Like, okay, am I supposed to be expanding? Am I supposed to help people expand? Am I supposed to be doing something with expansion? Like, and then I heard alchemy, expansion. I was like, okay, I like this. I like this name. I don't know what it is yet, but I love this name. This is great. And then like life around me started morphing and like I started seeing the logo, and the logo is a butterfly. It's a transformation, like shifting into the transformation of a butterfly, because butterflies like transcendence, transformation, all of that. And I was like, okay, so we're supposed to help. And like I started getting bits and pieces of it. Like this is a 4-hour meditation. In that 4 hours, I got everything. But bits and pieces of it. Okay, so we're supposed to help other people transform. Okay, we're back to the mentoring, the coaching. Expansion Alchemy is an amazing name. Like, okay, I'm not focusing on my personal brand anymore. Okay, now I know maybe I'm focusing on, okay, should this be maybe a coaching container? Do I need to, like, am I building a new company? What am I doing? And then I started getting people's names. And I'm in several different masterminds, with super high end, like entrepreneurs, mentors, coaches, all like authors, just a super high end people. And I started getting some of their names and I was like, oh, I see how I can be connected to this person. I see how this person can help me with this. And throughout this entire process, I kept getting the message collaboration, not competition. There's no need to build a business by yourself anymore. You don't have to build your personal brand anymore. You don't have to build a business anymore. Sure, like I have contractors, I have some employees, I have a virtual assistant, all of this, but that's not what I mean by collaboration. How can we come together with people that are of value and help more people in turn? Whether it's like creating seminars, whether it's virtual events, in-person events, whatever. And that's when like everything started clicking for me with Expansion Alchemy. I was like, okay, now I know I have 5 names. Okay, how many teachers do I want? I started getting like, so we started off with 15 teachers, but then we ended up cutting it down to, we have 12 teachers now. 15 was just way too hectic for our students, like 15 classes a month. Like I personally don't want to go to that. So we cut it down to 12 classes a month. And like I started getting, okay, 5 names here. And then I started getting like, okay, maybe connect yourself to this group. You're already somewhat connected to it. Reach out to this person. This person is going to be a link to this. And it just all started beautifully flowing together. I was like, okay, I know what I'm doing. I get it. And it was really funny because one of my teachers, I was on the phone with her like 2 or 3 days prior, because we had like a catch up or something. And I was telling her everything I was going through. I was like, so this happened. My business got taken away from me. I lost everything. I'm having like a meltdown on the phone with her. And then I do this meditation. 2 days later, I call her. I was like, okay, I know what I'm doing. This is the business. This is the name. This is what, and I want you to be a teacher. She's like, what just happened?
That is so cool. You know, I'm curious if it sounds a little bit similar, but my experience with spiritual growth and development too is like when you're in it, you're in the meditative mode, and it oftentimes comes at these clearing moments, right? When you're either at a rock bottom or a high, but regardless. But one of the experiences I had most recently, I was very fortunate enough to spend some time in Colombia, and I was right in the middle of the jungle with these super remote tribes. And one night I was sitting there with what they call a mamo, or their version of a shaman, and
I live
he
in
just,
Colombia, right?
oh, I didn't know that.
I'm calling
Oh,
it from
really?
Medellin. Yeah.
Wow, isn't that something? Yeah, we landed in Santa Marta, and then from there we went to stay with an Aruako tribe and a Koga tribe as well, and it was just an amazing experience. So I was sitting with one of the mamos, and we were having this conversation, and he described to me in perfect clarity the next process, right? Because I'm kind of in one of those pivot points, those shift points, when the past is decomposing and something better for the future is preparing itself. So he described to me with perfect clarity. And as he was describing it to me, which I'm not entirely sure if he was using words or just kind of giving me the message, but um, I get this perfect vision of what it would be like. It sounds fairly similar, right, in this moment. But then a couple days passed, and I'm like, okay, I can actually sit down and write it down. And I get my pen and paper. There was nothing. There was a memory of this experience of getting all this information as to what happens next, but then the only thing I had access to was the next step. The complete vision was no longer there. The only thing available to me was the next step. And one of the things I found in my own spiritual journeys is faith. You have to have faith. And when you get a clear step, you take that step. And as soon as that's done, then the next thing is available to you. So I'm curious if there's any resonance or sort of similarities in this download and spiritual process you had.
So I like explaining it like this, and I've explained this to so many people, so many clients, and I think it'll really resonate as well. So meditation to me is like, you don't have to be on top of a mountain going om for hours. Like, all meditation is quieting the mind. Like, simply just quiet the mind, and then all of your anxiety goes away, because anxiety is your mind like constantly going, that monkey chatter going. So if we quiet the mind, all of that goes away, and then all the answers come to you. Meditation doesn't have to be sitting on a mountaintop. It could be running, it could be doing the dishes, it could be whatever it is for you that allows you to quiet your mind. A lot of the times when we're in a meditative state when we're showering, not thinking about anything, washing our hairs, washing our bodies, and then you get this grand idea and you're like, whoa, that's a great idea. But then you don't do anything with it. You don't act on it. And then maybe a couple days later, you're like, okay, I wanted to write that idea down, but crap, I don't remember what it was. Where do I even start? So the universe, God, throws these ideas at people, and whoever is quickest to grab that idea and write it down and take that first step to remember it will remember that idea. And then if it passes you by, God's like, I got a bigger plan. Like, this shit needs to happen. Like, I'm going to give it to the next person. So he takes it away from you and gives it to the next person that's going to act on that idea. And then 5 months down the road, you're like watching a commercial and something comes on TV and you're like, hey, that was my idea for that invention. Why didn't I do that? Well, yeah, you had the idea first, but you didn't act on it. You didn't do anything. That's my easiest way of like explaining that. Like, that's what happens. We need to act on those ideas, and whatever that action is, it might just be writing it down as soon as you have that idea, so it doesn't float away from you.
Right. So that actually seems like a beautiful and natural segue from the first pillar, which is spirituality, into the second pillar, which is personal development, because a big part of that is, how do you actually take action? Like the mentoring and coaching, that it sounds great in theory. You've got this idea and you may even write it down, but the process of developing the confidence and developing the motivation and developing all of the inner skills required to actually move forward with an idea. Is that kind of what the next pillar is, or could we dive into your perspective of personal development?
Yeah, so personal development is definitely taking the action, but it's also doing things that resonate with you. So sometimes personal development could be going to a Tony Robbins seminar. Sometimes it might be reading a self help book. Sometimes it might be like you tracking your habits, whatever that is for you, doing something similar with spirituality. Like both of those kind of go hand in hand. And yes, spiritual is more on your spirit, more on your soul, whereas personal development is your mind. And then going into the health, your body, and etc. But personal development is like, okay, how are we going to take that action, and how are we actually going to implement all of that stuff? It's the integration when you go to a ceremony, essentially. So, like, yes, ceremony was great. That's spiritual, but how are we applying all of that to day life? How are we taking action? How are we counting ourselves accountable? How are we doing the actual work? Because the real work starts after a ceremony. It doesn't start while you're in the spiritual stuff. Okay, how are we applying that to real life and actually keep going and going and going and keep ourselves accountable and have people around us that are going to help us, that are support us, that we're not just going to beat ourselves up because we missed the day of doing your gratitude or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And if it's all right with you, I'd like to dwell on this idea of integration a little bit. I feel as though it's not neglected. Many people are aware of integration. It's just kind of spoken of. I find that even though it's in the sphere of understanding and knowledge, and so many people are aware of the fact, like you go through a plant medicine session, and integration is important, or you do a Tony Robbins, and amazing, and integration is important. But again, I find there tends to be a drop off in actually doing the process of integration. So, in your experience, what does integration really look like for you?
And it's different. Integration is different for every single person. I facilitate plant medicines. I do integration mentoring, and there's always pre-integration as well as post-integration. It can be, and different people do it different way, and each person is different as well. It can be just taking yourself for a couple of days and grounding and going to a park, sitting by a tree, reading a book, drawing, dancing, whatever it is that you connect to, but still having a little bit of that ceremony within you. So I'm going to speak
Hmm.
for ayahuasca, for example, and we call this an ayahuasca glow. Like after you leave the ceremony, you're like glowing for a week and you're like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. Life is so beautiful. It's so fantastic. But then once the ayahuasca glow like goes away, that's when you need to start integrating. Yes, you should start integrating as soon as you leave the ceremony, but that's when you're like, oh, life is just kind of dull, and you go back to your regular habits. That's when integration is so pertinent. Like you need to start applying everything that you learned from the ceremony, and then you'll be able to start applying it into your regular life. Something that I really like to do, and I create boxes for my clients and people that come to my retreats, is while you're in ceremony, finding something that you can go back to later, whether it's finding a rock, like finding a feather or something that's going to, like, once you go back to your home country, once you go back to wherever you live, and you're trying to integrate, whether it's a piece of music that you really like a piece of wood, whatever it is, taking it back and like sitting with it, meditating with it, so you have a little bit of an anchor to grab you back into that ceremony, into the feelings of what you were feeling like when you had this big breakthrough, when you were healing something, when you let go of some kind of trauma, whatever it might be. But it anchors you back into that moment, and that'll assist with your integration process.
That makes sense. That makes sense, and I really like the idea of anchors, with or without them, but certainly without them. I find for myself and many people that I work with, there is that glow period, and it's easy to do the integration work when you're still in the glow because you're basically still there, right? It's that
Ayahuasca
three,
glow.
four, exactly, those weeks or months later when the glow has certainly worn off, and when the difficulties with relationships come back in, which is another pillar, or when work, right, when real quote unquote real life, big air quotes on that one, comes back into the picture, it's hard to maintain the integration. And you said a word that I'm very curious about, which I really appreciate. And I think it was pre-integration. What did you mean by that?
Pre-integrating, just getting yourself set up for ceremony, for whatever you're going into, whether it's in a group setting or in a solo setting, okay, a week beforehand, I'm going to double up on my meditation. I'm going to do a morning meditation and an evening meditation. I'm really going to sit with my intentions. I have a list of questions that I ask people that before they come to ceremony, or if I'm doing pre-integration with them, to really sit and journal. So they're getting deeper into their subconscious mind, because journaling is great for that, or doing breath work, meditations, whatever. Really getting into that, okay, what do I really want out of this ceremony? Instead of, okay, yeah, I just want the surface level thing, but going deep into what I truly want, then going through the ceremony, and then post integration afterwards. Okay, how am I integrating this now into my real life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that. It sort of creates the routine of integration without the glow. So then when the glow wears off, you've already got something in place and you're not relying on that glow in order to see through. That's brilliant. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
When I was preparing for one of the ceremonies that I participated in, the I think it was 3 weeks, maybe a month lead up was very important. And there was certainly a pre-integration process to it. But a really big part of it was diet, health, nutrition, right? Is making sure that the vessel, the body, the physical aspect of what I call Jess was in decent enough shape, right? So I see that that's another pillar for you in Expansion Alchemy, is this idea of health. So what does that encompass then?
So health would be whether it's the nutrition that you eat, the foods that you eat. We have some people working on Ayurveda stuff, so like really helping you with your diets. Like, okay, maybe I'm going through like I'm having breakouts, my hair's falling out, whatever it might be. A lot of that might be your hormones are off, and maybe you just need to adjust your diet some particular way. So we have specialist nutritionists that help with that. And then we have this one woman doing like epigenetics as well, like really going into your health. Okay, this can get rewired because my family was. I'm Polish, so I have some of the Holocaust is coming up for me right now. And that's something that I really worked on while I just spent 2 months in the jungle. So like maybe rewiring something with your family, so future generations don't have to go through that. Maybe it's addictions. Maybe you're addicted to alcohol, cigarettes, whatever it might be. That can be epigenetically passed down to your kin. Well, okay, let's work on that now in this vessel so that my children don't have to worry about that and we don't have to pass that on. One of my all-time favorite quotes is like, okay, let's heal in this generation so future generations don't have to go through that. And yes, we pass things on epigenetically. Yeah, your mind, body, and spirit fully in alignment, whether it's health, whether it's getting your epigenetics aligned, whether it's like working out. You have someone that helps with like a holistic workouts, or there was this one class that was called like mindful eating, or I don't even remember. There's so many of them at this point. Yeah, eating mindfully. So you're not just like overeating and like, oh, I'm bored, I'm watching Netflix, I'm gonna have a tub of ice cream. Before you know it, you eat the entire tub of ice cream. Mindfully eating. So yeah, mind, body, and spirit, the whole shebang.
What I'm beginning to appreciate is once again, the order that you've discussed these in, because so often in whether it's the integrative world, medicine world, or the conventional medicine world, number one focus is on body. Important, no question. You got to make sure that the body is healthy and well maintained. And then after that, there's an increasing importance on the mind, right? And from the pillars you're discussing, that's sort of the personal development stuff.
Yeah.
Mental health, thankfully, is finally getting some light shone on it. And then lastly, again, tucked away in this corner, there's this idea of spirituality, which in the world at large is, again, very slowly starting to gain some traction. But this order that you have it in, which is spirit, mind, body, instead of mind or body, mind, spirit, is brilliantly put together. So thank you for doing that. And that download the information you got. Perfect.
Thank you. Just want to be clear.
Yeah.
So that is the B2C section, that way that I speak it. When I speak to corporations, I lead with personal development, health, relationships, spirituality, then financial wealth. I have a
I
different
dig it.
for corporations.
Yeah. Okay. I really like that idea. I really appreciate it because it is important, depending on your demographic and who you're speaking to, where you begin. When you are working with, or this idea of working with corporations, how do you manage or imagine bringing in the conversation of spirituality to a group of people who may or may not be open to such a discussion.
So I actually just had this discussion last weekend during my event. And if anyone wants to watch the event, feel free to reach out and we can add stuff in the show notes. Replays are available. It's a 3-day event talking about all those pillars. We do have all of the teachers on, so replays are available if you want to catch that. So I had someone actually on day 2 ask that. He's like, I love Expansion Alchemy. I love all that you guys are doing, but how do I bring this up to my team? Like, how do I bring this to my employees? I want to like, my wife already thinks I'm crazy and I'm going to get abducted by aliens. Literally what he said. I was like, that's amazing. I was like, yes, we do have some teachers that are all spiritual. Me personally, that's how I am. I talk about all the vibrations, all the woo-woo stuff. That's just how I am. And then we have teachers, this gentleman named Nico, for example, where he's like super masculine, super like, I love stress. Like, he's a personal development and business guy. He's like, I love stress. And I'm like, and there's people in between as well, very different. You don't bring this up to your employees as, oh, I want you to sign up for this woo-woo holistic thing. No, you say this, okay, this is going to make us all better. We're all going to feel better. Our health is going to be better. We're all going to be more productive. And in turn, the company is going to make a lot more money. So bring it up as, we're going to feel better, because who doesn't want to feel better? It doesn't matter if you're in corporate or if you're not. We're going to feel better versus we're going to raise our vibration and meditate for 10 hours. No, corporations don't want to hear that.
Yeah, a bit of a hard sell that way. So are you going to have like two separate, I mean, this is a bit of a technical thing, but I can't help my curiosity. Are you going to have almost two separate websites, two separate ways of advertising? Because they really seem very, of course, the pillars are the same, but the delivery to me strikes me as something incredibly different.
So the sites we do have 2 sites. One site, so one is just Expansion Alchemy. If you go on the homepage, that's the B2C site. And on top in the toolbar, I have individuals and I have corporations. I have 2 separate sections. And then just expansionalchemy.com is the B2C side. And that's all that stuff. And then if you click on the business side, it goes expansionalchemy.com/business. Maybe I'll make it into like .co or something. I don't know yet. Just thinking out loud. And that one, it's pretty much the same exact site. It looks exactly the same. The verbiage is slightly different because it is adjusted to the B2B. And then I do have a VSL up top, a video sales letter, and that is almost the same, but it's talking to a different audience. It's me recording it, and I just speak differently to it. The order of the pillars are different, but it looks almost identical, but it's just those little tiny tweaks to speak to the corporate audience versus the B2C audience.
Okay, I love this. I love this idea, and it's not where I thought we'd go with it, but I have another curiosity that came up for me, if that's okay.
Of course.
You strike me as an individual that values authenticity based on the content I've seen you produce, as well as so far within our conversation. And when I imagine something like you're discussing, right? You've got 2 different demographics, one of which is the customer and the consumer, the individual, who's likely seeking out your services because of who you are as an individual. And once again, you got this beautiful air of spirituality. And then you've got the corporate side of things, which from what you say, you had 10 years experience in that. So I'm sure you could walk that walk. How do you maintain your own authenticity when the demographic that you're speaking to, their outward appearance at the very least is very different? So I'm curious about this authenticity aspect when you switch demographics.
Me personally, I believe I should be, I love authenticity. And thank you so much for that. Like, I really appreciate that compliment. I really believe that you need to know exactly who you are. Sure, if I'm speaking to a different audience, the way that I say things might be slightly different, but I'm still going to be me. I spoke at a conference in Florida in the end of last year, and it was called the HEAL Conference, and it was all about healthcare and education, and Expansion Alchemy actually got an award. And it was a whole bunch of people in suits talking about healthcare and like higher educations and all this boring stuff. And that was me, like jungle woman over here, like sharing ancestral medicines. I had some rapé with me. I had some mambe, ambia, and just like being me. So yes, I was there as an award receiver and I spoke eloquently, but I was still me at the end of the day. Like, this is who I am. So take it or leave it. And I can't tell you how many compliments I received. Like, you are such a breath of fresh air. Yes, you've got tattoos all over you. Like, you're eclectic. Like, you have so much energy. You're bringing all these weird things to us, but you're speaking to us as a human. You're not asking me for money right now. You're wanting to get to know me and introducing me to your world. Yes, it might be weird, but I so appreciate that. I can't tell you how many like compliments I've received about that. So there is a place to be authentically you. Sure, the way that you say it, I'm not going to be like, oh, I just came from the jungle, here, try this tobacco up your nose. Like, I'm not going to say that. But this is what it is. And instead of saying, okay, it might balance your masculine and feminine, it balances both sides of your hemispheres, the left and the right, like in your brain.
Right.
So the way that I say it is a little bit different, but I'm still me at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that. And I think the choice of wordings doesn't have to come across as inauthentic. And one of the things you say, that individuals were saying it's a breath of fresh air. And I'm finding that more and more at large, right? I don't follow trends necessarily. I don't understand Instagram, but I spend a crazy amount of time on YouTube. I will fully admit that and acknowledge that. That is my university. And one of the things I am noticing by and large is people are so much more interested in just just the individual. Nothing scripted, nothing over the top. I mean, there's certainly that out there, but I am definitely seeing this trend of people who are just so sick and tired of corporate talk, who are so sick and tired of over the top excitement and like obviously fake joviality. So I appreciate that as an individual who just went through the process of speaking at a place where a lot of people are in suit and ties, and you just being you, that again, that message was reflected, that people crave that. They crave interactions with real, genuine, authentic humans.
Definitely. And find out, so like authenticity. I have 4 authenticity pillars for me, and it's embodiment, freedom, magic, and expansion. How am I
Beautiful.
doing every single thing that I'm doing to reflect those? How am I living in embodiment? How am I living in magic? And for me, magic is like spirituality, nature, love. Like, I have multiple categories underneath each of them. And that's
Mhm.
how I deal with my 4 pillars. So like, I encourage your audience, like, go through an authenticity exercise. Like, pick a, go on like Pinterest, go on Google, type in like authenticity words, like get a list of like 50 words and see which 4 really resonate with you, or 5, and narrow it down to as little as possible, 4 or 5. And how are you doing every single thing in your life based off of those 4 words? And I truly
Mhm.
believe like your authenticity pillars don't change throughout your life, similar to your values. Like, they might shift and evolve. So like the way that I see freedom now, for example, or adventure, is a little bit different than when I did when I was 15 years old, but it's still something that makes me truly authentically me, because like my authenticity is my authenticity. That shouldn't change. It
Mhm.
might shift and evolve, but that's who I am as a human being.
Mhm. And I'm curious about then the interaction between these 4 descriptive words of authenticity and values. As I believe an individual, once they've identified their values, which in and of itself I think is like essential practice, but is there a difference between embodying your values and embodying these words used to describe your authenticity, or is there overlap?
There is overlap. So let me pull mine up actually, because my
Okay.
values are very similar but slightly different than my authenticity. So my values are adventure slash variety, beauty and creativity. That's one together. Growth and freedom. Whereas
Mhm.
my authenticity is freedom, embodiment, expansion, aka growth, and magic.
Interesting. What just occurred to me as you're describing them is values that you described are an action, whereas your authenticity is a feeling. Would that be accurate?
Ah, I never thought of it that way, but I like that.
Perhaps it's just my own subjectivity and projection. For me, when I think of what authenticity is like, it's a very distinct feeling, an embodied sensation.
Yeah.
Or more specifically for me, it's a lack of. It's like when there's nothing going on and it's just like emptiness. I'm like, no, this is not being authentic. But when I do start to feel things, I'm like, good, this feels like me.
So what's coming up to for me right now actually is like maybe your values are more like mind and heart centered, like like mind and body, whereas
Mm-hmm.
your authenticity is your soul. This is what my soul craves.
Ah, nice. I really like that distinction. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And I think it's an important distinction because, of course, I mean, I'm a TCMD, a doctor of Chinese medicine, so we view everything as the same, right? There is no difference between the mind, body, and soul. They are the same thing. But then in conversation, we of course have to distinguish them all. I do think those distinctions are important, and understanding that how one embodies these comes from a different, I suppose, energetic center. Huh. Fascinating.
Hey, I like
That was a fun tangent, right? But with that,
that.
shall we continue to dig into
Yeah,
these pillars, because we have talked the first three, and I'm
perfect.
quite curious about relationship. I include relationship in sort of one of my programs as well, and again I find it's talked about but rarely. In a corporate setting, it might be spoken of. The relationship you have with your coworkers is important, and maybe if there's some higher executives, they might learn about how to build strong relationships with your employees. Uh, but for you within this program, how do you view relationships as a foundational pillar?
Yeah, so how you do one thing is how you do everything. So the
Mm,
relationship, the way you foster your relationship with yourself is the same way you do it with a partner, with a lover, with your children, with your employees, with a boss, with a manager. The way you deal with conflict is the same exact way, whether it's your partner or your boss. It doesn't matter. So how you do one thing, you do in all of them. So okay, let's say you're watching a masterclass on dealing with a relationship with a lover. You can learn information about this and apply it to the business world, apply it to your boss, your employees, whatever, because conflict is conflict. A relationship is a relationship. The way you foster one relationship, you foster it the same exact with another person, because human. Interaction is interaction. Soul sees soul.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I do appreciate that. And do you have a sort of baseline philosophy you build this relationship? For example, a very common one is attachment theory. That's a common way of describing relationships. Is there a pre-existing modality or principle that you use when discussing and teaching about strong
So I don't teach
relationships?
on relationships.
Uh-huh.
FYI. I don't.
Okay.
I teach personal development,
Yeah.
spirituality, a little bit
Hmm.
of like financial wealth. I don't teach
Okay.
on the relationships.
Uh-huh.
Some teachers do have particular modalities. Some teachers just kind of go all over. And something that's really beautiful that we do in Expansion Alchemy is before someone signs up corporation wise, we give all of the employees as well as the managers and above different surveys to fill out. Okay, what do you need help with? What do you need assistance with? Where do you think your team needs help with, etc. Then from that, I give that survey to all of the teachers and we create classes based off of what the needs of the students are. So if
Hmm.
they need particular classes on relationships with themselves, relationships with their partners, whatever, then my teachers curate specific classes based off of that.
Right. Okay. Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. Lovely. Well, then perhaps we can dig into this idea of finances. One of the things that I don't know if it's tied in together, but one of the monikers, the hashtags that I saw you go by is Millennial Manifester. It's so many people in the world of manifestation. It's like, what do you want to manifest? Money.
Love and
Of
money.
course,
Everyone
that's
always
it.
wants love and
Love and
money.
money. That's it.
Love and money is actually a beautiful correlation with one another. Like if
Hmm.
you're manifesting love and you're like at a like financial like either really well or really poorly, then the other one is going to ask you to up level and vice versa. Let's say you're in the best relationship of your life but you're financially rock bottom, like your finances are asking you to expand because you've already done so in the love part. They go hand in hand, which a lot of people don't realize that they do.
Hmm. Yeah, I like that a lot, and I found that looking at financial life as less of a number and more of an energy. So I guess kind of going back into the realm of spirit, it's like if an individual views finances from a different perspective, particularly if their baseline perspective is that of lack, but if they view finances as an outcome of value, it very much shifts how finances and financial wealth is developed. How do you feel about that? How does that land with you?
I 100% agree with that.
Mm,
So we manifest from our subconscious mind. We manifest from your subconscious is all of your thoughts, your programmings, all of the stuff your parents taught you, society has taught you when you were younger, your inner child, your shadows when you were younger. So a lot of the time we get that lack because okay, our parents, like for example, myself, like I had a lot of programming to do around money. I'm an immigrant to the US. I came to the US when I was really young. My parents were 20 years old when we came to the US, like with a little 3 year old. Like they didn't have real jobs. Then my dad got in a work accident when I was 10 years old. I had to grow up really quickly. Like went to university really early. Then my dad stole $100,000 from me. Then like this
mm,
happened. And so like I had all of this programming. I had a lot of work around money to do. And I'm still working on it. Like it's still not 100% perfect, but that was all living in my subconscious mind. So your lack links to your inner child. Okay, maybe you were in a healthy, you had healthy parents growing up, but that you maybe your mom wasn't allowed to like spend money. Maybe it was just your dad being like a dictator pretty much, and you're like, "Oh, I have lack because," but their relationship was loving. So whatever that dynamic might be, it all comes from like that subconscious mind. So we need to learn to reprogram that so that you feel worthy of having abundance, having financial wealth, having whatever, but it stems from that inner child. Okay, what did your
mhm.
inner child look at this? What did your and it's stuff that we don't even like, that's what your subconscious is, stuff that you don't even recognize because it's not conscious. But it's living so deep in you, you might not even realize it. And that's where you really have to start looking. And yes, it is energetics. How can we change that energy? Because it's easy to reprogram your subconscious, like sitting in a breath work, doing some EFT tapping, journaling, whatever it might be. Once you release that, you can reprogram it and give yourself a new story. And that's when you'll energetically start like feeling valuable, feeling like you're deserving, worthiness, that you can have this.
Mhm. Yeah, and again, it reinforces this principle that you have of the order in which one goes through the pillars. Is finances is often a afterthought, not an afterthought, a repercussion of doing the rest of the work. It's like that just sorts itself out. The principles are like, okay, I got this, I got
Exactly.
this. Yeah. Hmm.
It'll just make itself fall into place. Like sometimes you might not even have to work on your finances at that point. They'll just
Yeah.
automatically raise because you've done
Right.
the work.
And I also like the love and money phrase that you said. What I found is these two things, for some reason, they go opposite of that famous Bible verse, "Seek and ye shall find." Right? It's like everything I've experienced in life. If I want it, I just look for it. I put the intention out there. I put the effort in, and the thing appears or it gets created. But those two things, love and money, they're like the opposite. It's like the harder you look for love and the harder you want money, the further away they seem to get. And I'm curious if you've experienced that or you see something the same, and if so, what's going on with that?
Because you need to detach. All about manifestation is letting go and
Mhm.
detaching. I surrender. I know that it is coming. Not God, it's been 5 minutes. Why isn't my lover at my front door? Why isn't Prince Charming here? Come
Yeah.
on, God. Where is it? Where is it? Let go, surrender. Everything in perfect divine timing. Everything is going to happen. Just keep doing the work, keep working on yourself, and everything will fall into place. Don't have attachment when it's going to come. This is how it's going to happen because God's got a much better plan for you than you can ever imagine. And if you keep
Mhm.
asking, knocking on his door, like he'll be like, yo, wait,
Just hang on.
over here.
Yeah, yeah. No, I really appreciate that, and I find that that tends to be the case too. Those two aspects, the love and money, they tend to be the byproduct of the inner work, the true alchemy an individual does. Yeah. So as we've gone through this expansion alchemy, I'm curious if it feels all right with you if we can shift into some of the personal work that you do, because I understand you do indeed do coaching, and from what I've seen, a variety of coaching as well. So is it all right if we kind of shift
Yeah.
directions into that area? Yeah. Okay. So with your personal coaching, what's your favorite? I'll just
So
go with
I
that. What's your
prefer
favorite type of
mentor.
coaching?
I prefer
Okay.
mentor.
Okay.
I've gotten rid of the
Love it.
word coaching. I don't like coaching anymore. And I
Mm-hmm.
just focus on spiritual mentoring at the moment,
Okay.
spiritual and like integration mentoring. I
Okay.
work a lot with plant medicines. I facilitate plant medicines. I'm actually in the process of looking for land to build a retreat center here in Colombia. Um, so focusing a lot on post integration mentoring, spiritual mentoring. I do Akashic records. I do a lot of stuff, but like the spiritual stuff, that's my jam.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Okay. I want to thank you for that distinction and correction between coaching and mentoring. I appreciate that. And when you talk about spiritual mentoring, what what's that like for you? It's something that I'm very interested in personally, and I imagine though a lot of people listening are like, what are you talking about spiritual mentoring?
So let me go backtrack a little bit about coaching and mentoring. Like, what is the difference between the two, and why do I prefer one versus the other? Isn't it the same thing? And some people might think that. So, coaching is okay. You've gone through Tony Robbins. You had your own like coach or mentor, and these are the 7 steps that you need to take in order to do X, Y, and Z. Whereas a mentor teaches strictly based off of experience. Yes, I might implement some tools and techniques that I've learned along the way, but I was sick for so long. I sat in plant medicines. I did this, and I teach based off of my own experiences. This is what worked for me. This is what worked for other people. This is what I've seen work. This is what I've seen didn't work. Do not try this at home. Whatever it might be. I teach off of experiences. That's what a mentor is versus a coach.
Hmm.
I'm sorry. Now, what was your question? I just went off on a tangent.
So this idea of what exactly is spiritual mentoring?
Yeah, so assisting people to raise their mind, body, and spirit. Whether I have some clients that have never meditated before, I just want to feel better. I just want to wake up and not have anxiety. And I have a bunch of tools that I help them with, whether it's meditation, whether it's some Akashic records, whatever it might be. Then I have
Mm-hmm.
some clients that are so deep on the path. And they're like, okay, I've been meditating every day for 5 years. I'm doing this, I'm doing this. And they just want to go in deeper. So for them, I usually work with plant medicines. I work with tools that they might have never heard of. Human design, going into astrology, whatever. And like, I'm not an expert at all of these, but I know a lot of experts and I do my own due diligence as well. Again, I'm a mentor, I'm a coach. I know all of this, but this is
Mm-hmm.
what works. This is what I've tried. This is what I can help with. So diving into different tools, and then plant medicines a lot of the times for those people that are a lot more experienced as well.
If you're comfortable with it, can we dig into plant medicines? What's
Yeah.
the preferred modality as opposed to the preferred plant, if you have one, and what's that process like?
Ayahuasca is
Yeah.
my all-time favorite.
Mm-hmm.
She's my favorite. I've been drinking with ayahuasca, working with the medicine for 6 years now. And just last November, I went to the jungle for 2 months to get initiated into a tribe so I can facilitate and serve the medicine. So I spent 2 months over there learning, and it's my medicine.
Mm. What do you think about it has called you with all the different, I guess, choices one has with spiritual plant medicines? What is it about ayahuasca that you love so much?
So with anything, like I really truly believe like do it all and see what calls to you. See which one you
Mm-hmm.
really resonate with it, because there's no one size for spirituality. Like not
Yeah.
everything is for everyone. Ayahuasca is definitely not for everyone. Ever since the first time that I drank, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Every single person on this planet needs to do this. I now have been working with this for 6 years. I know it is not for everyone, but I have that ayahuasca glow. I'm like, this is
Yeah.
amazing.
Totally.
And little by little, so my first few ceremonies was just really working through a lot of the traumas that I had, a lot of the big stuff, as I like to say. Ayahuasca first works on the big stuff. And now I'm over 100 ceremonies in. Like, she doesn't work. I don't have any more of that big stuff to
Mm-hmm.
work through anymore. but ever since the beginning, like she started giving me little inklings, like this is a lot more for you, for your soul to really work with me in a much more profound way, rather than just going as a like as a pasajero, as someone that's going there just for ceremony once a year, once every couple of years. Like I live in Medellin, so it's super accessible for me. I literally have ayahuasca in my cabinet in the moment because I facilitate my own ceremonies for myself as well sometimes. Like it's just a lot more accessible for me, and like she started just showing me inklings like this is going to be much deeper work for you because it's been so powerful for me. I've healed the most with ayahuasca. I've worked through the most. It's been my most profound healing modality. And I'm really excited to bring it to the world. And this is why she started calling me. Like I surrendered and I listened. Like this is what she wanted. This is what's happening.
That is beautiful, and she is a powerful medicine. So I appreciate the
She's not
approach
for
that you take.
everyone, though. Please do
No,
your
she's
due
not for everyone.
diligence. If you're watching this and
Yes,
thinking about it, please do your due diligence. It is not for
I would.
everyone.
I would agree with that completely. One of the ceremonies that I went to, which was beautifully facilitated, unbelievably well done, but there was a lack of, once again, integration. So for me, I wouldn't call it an ayahuasca glow. I would call it an ayahuasca atomic bomb, maybe. I'm not sure. There was no glow. It was just blasted open, totally blasted, which of course is amazing. But the lack of detailed integration really messed me up. Like it really, really genuinely messed me up. So I think not only is it do due diligence and research, it's make sure that the person that you are going to that is hosting the ceremony or facilitating the ceremony has all the steps from the
And if
pre-integration to
not,
the
this
actual
is why I
ceremony.
do, yeah, and if not, this is why I do integration mentoring as well. I help
Hmm.
people walk through ceremonies afterwards because sometimes I just don't have the capacity to hold ceremony for everyone. So go
Right.
drink somewhere else and then come back to me for the integration, either pre or post, whatever it might be. But that's something that once I open up my own center, I'll be focusing on very heavily, doing pre and post integration. We're looking at like doing some one-on-one stuff and then having like even courses like pre stuff. Watch these before you come to ceremony. This is what you need to do. And then afterwards,
Hmm.
like, okay, here are some steps, and then we'll do some one-on-one stuff. We'll do some group stuff as well because it's so important. And like I've drank at maybe 15 different centers here in Colombia. And all but one of them, one and a half, because the other one they had an integration program, but it was separate. It was someone who like you paid additionally. It wasn't included in the ceremonies. Only one center really focused on integration coaching and like post. None of them did pre post, and then the other one had like a separate program. So I was like, this is something that like is needed. I need to help people with this. So that's something we'll really be focusing on once our center's up and running.
Hmm. Hmm. I appreciate that a lot. I think that part, as I'm sure you could tell through the course of this conversation, I'm particularly passionate about the integration part, be it from plant medicine or just a lovely weekend retreat. I think that is an essential part of the process. So thank you for making that available to individuals who haven't gone through ceremony with you but are interested in integration.
Yeah, it's definitely how to integrate the mind, body, and spirit so it all becomes one. Because we know, like we were saying, it is all one. How do we
Hmm.
integrate that? Okay, my body just went on this journey. My mind went freaking to planet Mars or
Yeah.
somewhere. My spirit is flying over there in 6D right now. How do we put
Yeah.
it all together?
Yeah.
Mars, 6Ds, and actual Earth all in one.
Exactly. And then get back on a plane and go back home and
Yeah.
walk with the experience and the dignity afterwards. I think that's essential.
Yeah.
So as we're coming close to our time together, I'm curious, is there anything that you feel we haven't discussed that you would like to dig into, or any conversation that we can deepen?
I don't think so. I think we talked about all the good things at this point.
That's wonderful. Great, thank you. And there's one question that I ask virtually everybody. It's an ongoing curiosity I have. So, as a mentor and a practitioner of sorts, and likely somebody who's gone to many different practitioners, in your opinion and in your experience, what makes a practitioner successful?
Ooh, just being there for a patient, like a real bedside manner is very important. Whether they're breaking down, because there's been times that I've been to doctors where I broke down, or doing a Reiki session, Akashic Records, whatever it might be, just being there for the person and holding space for them in a really beautiful way.
Thank you. I think that is a wonderful answer. Thank you so much. Now, of
Thank you
course,
for.
all of the the links to all of your amazing endeavors and projects will all be in the show notes. And if anybody's interested, I'll make sure that they can get a hold of you and follow you quite easily from there. But I would really like to thank you for this conversation. I enjoyed it a lot. So thank you very
Thank
much
you
for your
so
time.
much, Jess. It's been a pleasure.